So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze the diagram that represents the thermodynamic cycle of a refrigerator. Okay, of a refrigerator. So before I draw the cycle, before we look at the cycle and actually go through it, okay, this is the general shape we're going to see for the cycle in a refrigerator. This part here is what's going on. Okay, and I'll explain how it works. But here's what I want you to think about. First, inside the refrigerator, you've got all this heat from the food that you put in the refrigerator that needs to be removed, right? So here's what I want you to start with. Start with the box. That's your refrigerator. Okay? Now, this is what I want you to be thinking about. You've got a coolant that's running. It's not literally running around the box, but this is how I'm thinking about it. You've got a coolant that is cooling down or drawing the heat out. Cooling down the inside or drawing out the heat. That's what you want to think about. This is not physically what's happening yet. We'll do that in a minute. I'm telling you what to think about. Okay? This here.
So what you said about the eggs is different when you actually like getting a chick from it.
Yes, absolutely different.
I didn't eat eggs. It's good chicken.
They're totally different things.
You eat chicken?
So you've got a coolant.
Yeah, like you eat chicken.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of
They
grow.
Yeah,
They take some chickens.
But don't hens only lay eggs, right?
They don't use their eggs.
Which ones lay eggs? Only the male, only the female?
No,
or
it's
something?
only the
For chickens, how does it work? Is it on some believe it or not are the other way around. Okay, I know that sounds weird. We're used to eggs, female, right? But in some species it is different.
The bee is lied to you.
So
I never knew
so for back to the refrigerator example, there's extra heat inside the refrigerator that needs to come out of it. Okay? So this coolant runs around the refrigerator, absorbs the heat. It absorbs all that heat. Okay? So the coolant eventually turns into a vapor because it absorbs so much heat. The coolant is a liquid, so there's a liquid coolant running around your refrigerator in a sense. It gets heated up from all the heat that's in the refrigerator. It forms a vapor. It then gets condensed. Okay, it gets condensed and then gets removed. The heat is getting removed, it's being blown over. And we're going to talk about how that works with a compressor and what a compressor is.
How does the coolant with a gas?
Did you
The
mean
coolant is a liquid. The coolant is a liquid that flows through the actual cycle. It absorbs the heat. It changes its phase into a gas.
Okay.
It is then cooled off. The heat is then removed by the method of a blower or a fan, in a sense, which is where you feel the heat coming out the bottom. Then the liquid that was a gas, turned into a gas, turns back to a liquid, and it repeats the cycle. Okay, I'm giving you the very simple version right now. We'll look at the diagram in a second. Bridget?
Did you mean to leave that on?
Yes, so it's a cycle. So it starts here as a liquid, really. Okay? The liquid absorbs some heat. It turns into a gas at some point. Okay, it's going to turn into a gas.
So the gas from outside of
Guys, this is not drawn to what it looks like. We'll do that in a minute, so ignore that, please. So the liquid turns into a gas. That gas gets cooled off, turning it back into a liquid eventually, and then it goes through the same cycle again. Let's look at the schematic to answer the questions you might have right now.
Is it compressed before you
The air is then compressed to push the molecules closer, which actually reduces the temperature.
You said cool off.
It turns it back to a liquid.
You study compressors?
No.
Well, you have the idea now, because compression is what you want to have there.
Yeah.
It's going to compress, which also reduces the temperature. Okay. So both things are happening at the same time. The air that you're feeling that's coming out is that extra heat. It needs to be blown out somewhere. So you're going to cool off that in a sense. Okay? All right. So here's how we start, people. First, the idea of the cycle. We're going to go through our different locations here. So first, you have first here the inlet where the refrigerant fluid goes in. Okay, the refrigerant fluid is going in. Where's the beginning of our cycle? A, B, C, D, E. So we have our expansion, extraction. Okay. So the liquid is going to be liquid form first. Okay. While it's gaining the heat, though, it's going to turn into another phase. It's going to turn into its gaseous phase. It's going to then be a gas. It's going to go through a compressor phase. Now, what the compressor does is this. It takes this gas that's in a certain volume, and it pretty much squeezes that volume down, which makes the molecules get what? Closer together. And if the molecules are closer together, it then goes back to a liquid. Again. So it starts as a liquid, it gets heated up into a gas. The compressor closes the volume, where it reduces the volume. And as we know from our law, PV over T equals PV over T. If I'm able to reduce the volume of this container to make this constant, I'm also reducing the temperature. When I'm reducing the temperature, I'm also actually increasing the pressure if I push down on it. So the temperature of this object needs to go down also. So then it goes from a gas back into a liquid, okay, through the means of a condenser. You don't have to write all this down, but I want you to understand what's going on. So then it gets condensed into its liquid form. All these liquid droplets begin to form. Okay, then it goes through something called an expansion valve. And an expansion valve, what it does is it allows you to release the pressure, but still maintain a liquid. Okay, it allows you to release that pressure that got built up, that caused it to condense into these little droplets. But at the same time, it still remains a liquid. And then it continues through the cycle here. So again, we're starting with a liquid. It's gaining heat from the refrigerator itself. That liquid turns into a gas. That gas gets compressed. The gas being compressed starts to condense to form closer molecules. It starts to condense into these little droplets. Then the condensation goes through what's called an expansion valve, which is able to release that pressure that was built up while maintaining a liquid form, and then it continues through as a liquid. But in order to run these devices, in order to run a compressor, what do you need? Electricity. So what do they call this here? What does W, capital W, usually stand for? Work, work, and then electricity is measured in watts. But this is telling us that we need to do some sort of work. We need to do work on here because we're going to need something to run this refrigerator. Thus, you plug it in. Okay, that's why you're going to plug that in. Okay, so if we want to summarize, just to summarize, okay, it starts as a liquid. That's the beginning of the cycle. Okay, the second stage of the cycle, okay, goes to a gas from gaining all that heat. Then you have a compressor. Okay, a compressor, and what a compressor obviously does is compress the volume. Okay, when a compressor, it decreases the volume. Okay, and when the volume decreases, the temperature will also decrease from PV over T. Thus, in the fourth step, we start to have a liquid phase, but let's write condenser first. Sure, that's fine. Liquid drops, or droplets.
Are you finished with that last time, sir?
The one on calorimetry? Well, we were going to do the example in homework. That was the last thing to finish on. But since people didn't do it, we're waiting on that stuff. So again, starts as liquid. It gains heat. If you want to put it this way, it gains heat, which causes it to become a gas. It goes through a compressor, which lowers the volume, thus lowering the temperature. It then goes through a condenser where the liquid starts to form droplets. Then an expansion valve. Which allows the liquid to flow. As a fluid, and then it goes back up to the top. It's a cycle. The whole idea is cycling. Now, in engineering school, you take a class simply on thermodynamics, a whole class on this. So we're abbreviating an entire semester in 15 minutes right there. Okay, that's all that is. I want you to keep in mind that this is just touching the surface. There is so much more to it. There are things called auto cycles, brain cycles, auto brain cycles. Okay, there are different types of cycles. Some are more efficient, some are less efficient. Again, the whole idea though is this. You want to maybe write this down. Maximize the efficiency. So use as little energy as possible to do what you need to do. Whether it's heating up or cooling down, different situations, right? Okay? But you want to minimize your expenses. Minimize your expenses. Minimize your expenses. That's what engineering is all about. That's why whenever I use the word optimize, minimize, maximize, I use them a lot. You notice that. Because that's all you learn about in engineering. You learn about how to make the best product there is. Like, why is Jason's product better than mine? Because his gets a better efficiency rate out of it. So his is going to sell more because it's going to cost him less to produce, so he can sell it cheaper. Why do you think, for example, Walmart, there are many reasons Walmart has terrible things, but one of them, let's use not Walmart, never mind. Southwest. Southwest. So Southwest Airlines is able to offer such low prices because of several reasons. One, they optimize their process in which they go about you purchasing, first of all. Okay? It is very different than a lot of other sites. A lot of other sites isn't like websites. Two, again, they don't stand alone. Two, the seats, the choices idea there. You choose your own seats. There's no computer that needs to do that for you. Not that that takes much energy at all, but it does take some ideas. Third, you can actually get a seat last minute still on their flights a lot of the time and still pay a pretty decent price. A lot of people still have to pay those crazy exorbitant prices. Also, a lot of their things that they actually have, they own their own line of jets now too. A lot of companies don't actually own their own, but Southwest has their own jet line, so they're able to minimize their costs. What else? They get more people to fill up their flights. So for example, if your prices are lower, but you can get 95% of the plane full, as opposed to high prices and only have 50% of the plane full. So even though they have cheaper prices, a lot of the time their flights do sell out. Okay, a lot of the times their flights do sell out. So the idea is that you want to minimize your cost while maximizing your income. Thus, in a sense, you're maximizing your profit. Okay, if you can cut down your costs but increase the money that you get, you maximize that gap, which is the profit gap. Right? That's how profit's attained. You take in money, you put out money. That's what profit is. So again, a lot of you guys have talked about studying business one day. Economics does use math because the fact that what you're trying to do is maximize your cost to benefit ratio. Okay, or I'm sorry, you want to minimize that. You want to think about this. Okay, as the net income, also known as your profit, as being defined as your income minus your expenses. And when you get to, if you take business school and you take classes, they're going to use fancier words for this stuff, but it all means the same thing. Okay? So you want to have the most income. So you want to maximize your income. Okay, you want to maximize your income. So when you get to thermodynamic efficiency, if you study any of this in college, your professor is not only going to talk about the thermodynamic process, but in the end what you're going to have to do is say this. How much energy was needed to power that compressor, condenser, and expansion? Expansion valve, you're not actually looking at much energy. So how much energy was needed to power these things versus how much did you get out of it? That's what they're going to say, really. And is your process efficient? And a lot of the time, old refrigerators, efficiencies were at levels of like 30%, 40%. But now you have refrigerators that are as efficient as 75%. So have you ever seen now for washers and dryers, ever go to buy a washer or dishwasher detergent or normal washing machine detergent? Now it says high efficiency on the label. Yeah. If you look at the label, like for example, say you're going to buy a dishwasher or washer detergent. What's a brand? I don't even know. Bounty, Tide, Bounty. Okay. On the label, you're going to see this. You see HE. It looks like he. I don't know why they don't capitalize it, by the way. It bothers me so much. They put dots like that. Well, why are they not capitalized? So it's high energy or high efficiency. Either way is fine. High energy, meaning you get a lot out of energy, which is really low energy in a sense. But it's high efficiency. Okay, a lot of the machines now, they do well with efficiency. What I want to do now is look at an example of Newton's law of cooling.
So, Mr. What happens? Hey, what happens if you use like a high efficiency and a regular washing machine?
It's not going to help you, but the other way around does hurt you. If you use regular detergent in a high efficiency machine, you're not going to get the high efficiency out of the machine. It's a waste. But if you use high efficiency detergent in a regular machine, you're still not going to get the high efficiency out of it because the machine can't handle it, and the high efficiency detergent costs more actually. So you don't want to mix and match. You either use high efficiency detergent with a high efficiency machine, or regular efficiency with a regular efficiency machine. Either way, mixing and matching, you're losing some of your money there.
Just like changing your bag.
Yes, it is. It very much is like that. And again, a lot of the time, guys, you don't want to use these things unless the machine really calls for it. So in your car, when you look at the octane levels, you're going to use either regular, plus, or premium, right? Regular is the cheapest, plus is the middle, premium is the most expensive. My car calls for regular. I'm not putting plus or premium in there, paying the extra 30 cents a gallon. What am I getting at? But if you have a Maserati, and you're paying $300,000 for the car already, and it calls for premium level fuel because the thermodynamic process wants that premium or the high octane level, you're going to pay the extra 20 cents a gallon, right? Because you paid $200,000 for that car already, I'm sure you can afford 20 cents a gallon more. So when you go to the gas station, what do most people use? The regular level. The majority of people do not drive Maseratis.
With some BMWs also.
Okay. No, some BMWs and Audis and Lexus and Mercedes, they'll call for the plus, the premium, sure, absolutely. But the majority of people own Hondas and Jeeps and Civics, and Hyundais and Toyotas.
There are
and Fords.
Civics too down the street.
Yeah, Civics are Hondas.
I know.
So most of the brands that we know are not, the high octane ones. If you're lost my train of thought.
Civics.
If you're sorry, not a big one. If your efficiency of your product is high efficiency, you don't always see the gain right away. That's the other thing you have to consider. Like, for example, we talked about solar panels this year a few times. Solar panels, don't you have a very high investment initially? Yeah. So you pay like, I don't know, $10,000 for solar panels. But every year you're saving $2,000. So after 5 years, don't you kind of balance out?
If they don't break.
Okay, yeah, so you don't break. Well, that's your break-even one, it's 5 years.
You gotta think about the future, not the present.
After the next year, then you start
How
gaining
can
money.
they break all that?
So, I guess storm, but you have insurance on it.
Rain, ice,
You get insurance for all these things, though, so you don't have to worry too much about breakage.
But I mean,
But doesn't that
If you're going to invest in solar panels, you're going to buy insurance. You're not going to buy it. That's not what you do. So, if you buy a high efficiency washing machine, you're not going to notice the payout right away. But what will happen is this: you'll pay an extra like $200 or $300 for the high energy one, a high efficiency machine, over the regular one. So say a regular washing machine, I don't know what the prices are. Say a regular washing machine is like $300 or $400. A high efficiency washing machine might be about $600. If you buy a washing machine and a dryer together, you're talking about like $1,000. So you pay an extra $200 for the high efficiency, but over the first year, you're going to save maybe $100, $200. So over the lifespan of this object, you're going to save money. You see what I'm saying? But you don't see it right away. So the idea is to think long term. Okay? You always want to be thinking long term, especially with investments. It's an investment, a washing machine. It really is. You're investing money in it to save you money from going to the dryer, to going to the laundromat. And in the end, you're saving even more money if you get the high efficiency. Okay? So it's cheaper to go to the laundromat right away. It is. Because you don't have to invest a lot of money. But in the long run, it's cheaper to invest in that. But sometimes it's tougher in your life, depending on how much money you have at the time. So for example, for me, I'm not buying solar panels anytime soon because I don't have the $10,000 to lay out.
You can make it.
Okay? But maybe in the next few years, if I can save up that money, then maybe if I eventually buy my own house, I'll buy the panels to save myself money. Okay, but you gotta save money to do this stuff first.
Hey,
You gotta save it first.
I'm not environmental friendly. I'm sorry, I'm not. If like I'm saying, like it's like if my when I rent my house or whatever, if it doesn't have a washing machine, then I'm not gonna live there. And if it's not high efficiency, well, oh well, you know, if I don't have solar panels in my house to spurts out CO2, but it's cheap. Oh, I'm sorry.
You know what the problem is now? You do all that kind of stuff, there are laws, you're gonna go to jail. So you gotta be careful.
I don't go to jail.
There are actual regulations.
What'd you go to jail for?
For example, for
Yeah.
example, let me give you an example, okay?
I'm allowed.
Every company, I'll let you go in a sec, every company has a certain amount of waste they can produce every year. And if they go over that limit, they get a fine. If they go too far beyond that limit, they can actually be closed down by the government. We'll talk more about it next time, so just keep that in mind. Okay?
That's great.
Again, the goal is this, guys, this week. Either tomorrow or Thursday, we'll do a lab. The other day of those two, we'll have a review of a test on heat transfer on Friday. We have more time to review stuff.
Too much.
My test on Friday is on.